It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Was there any soreness for the shoulder during the game? I mean, how did it feel at all?
Good. I'm going to stay on top of it. I'm going to keep doing what I do, sticking to the system, the process, and, get this thing back, 100%, and just keep moving forward, keep trying to win these games, man. We got to keep winning. December is important for us right now.
And welcome into Purple Access. That, of course, the hero from last night's Vikings. Far too close victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Purple Access presented by our friends at Surly Brewing, Surly Furious in particular. After last night's game, if you didn't need a Surly, I don't know. You must not be alive. Also, big shout out to our friends at TCL TV. Enjoy more with TCL, and hopefully you watched the game on a crisp, clear TCL and saw that 29-0 lead for the Vikings and thought, man, my TCL is working great. And then the rest of the game came along. It's Zolgad. It's Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune sports columnist, my former partner in crime on the Vikings beat, and executive producer Declan Goff. And Chip, I just want your thoughts. I mean, that was so crazy. There were so many storylines. Your thoughts on a win that I guess I can safely say from my standpoint felt like more of a loss just because of how it unfolded.
That was not a game you wanted to happen at night on deadline. As a writer.
No.
That was
no.
I aged about 10 years last night. We've seen some weird things with this team and this organization, Judd, and that one is up there. I mean,
yeah,
29-0. I'm pounding down a column about how great this defense is playing and make Ben Roethlisberger look like he was 75 years old. And I mean, you could not have two more polar opposite halves by that team. There's something about this team that just cannot get out of its own way. I mean, it's remarkable that they could turn a 29-0 lead into, oh my God, you got to make a game-saving play in the end zone on the last play. It's unbelievable, Judd.
Mm-hmm. Did that? So I was trying to draw Minnesota sports equivalents to if the Vikings had lost that game. And I actually don't know if I have a Vikings equivalent. The only thing I could come up with is the Mason era Gophers that you covered. It felt like a Gophers game from circa 2004 or 5.
Well, I was there writing about Michigan 03. This would have been worse now. I mean, this would have been worse than that. Yeah. Because Judd, the Steelers in the first half looked like they didn't even want to be in Minnesota. I mean, it couldn't – the way the running lanes that Dalvin Cook had were embarrassing for Pittsburgh. I mean, just the way they're just getting hammered up front, both in the trenches, both sides. And then Big Ben, I mean, how many free runs did Vikings defenders have at him for sacks? I mean, it was just like at halftime you're thinking, okay, this is going to be, a 45-10 game. And so that one, well, it would have been the biggest blown lead in NFL history, correct?
I believe that.
Did I read that correct? I think I saw somebody tweeted that would have been
the biggest. That's correct.
We haven't seen it. There would be a regular season. I mean, you haven't seen something like that. So,
right.
Judd, it just reaffirmed, a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to the Detroit game. If that defensive line and linebackers, if they do not get pressure on the quarterback, their cornerbacks are just not good enough. I mean, first half was 4 sacks. Roethlisberger's had no time. It just looked awful. Second half, 1 sack. He had time. And the Vikings cornerbacks they're just not good enough, Judd. And so I think that's what you're going to see. It's like it's hard for them. We keep saying, put your foot on their throat, bury a team. But when you have a secondary that has that many deficiencies, I think it's hard.
The stat that Kevin tweeted from ESPN Stats and Info was no team in National Football League history has ever won a regular season game after trailing by more than 28 points. The largest deficit overcome overall was 32 points by the Bills against the Houston Oilers in the 92 wildcard round. So yes, this would have been the most colossal, epic meltdown in a regular season game. Now, there's a lot of things here too. I agree with you. The Steelers were basically begging the Vikings to put them out of their misery. The Steelers had no intention of coming back. So it's not like, oh man, look how the plucky Steelers. They were like, we're dead. It's over. And the Vikings are like, oh no, come here. Come on, come in. We'll be a good guest. Come in the door. We got chips and dip and some Surly's for you. And put your feet up, Chase Claypool and Big Ben. But Chip, I said at the end of the day, to use a cliche, I honestly think that game is the perfect time capsule moment for anyone who asks about the 2021 Vikings, because the first half showed the potential that this team had. And Chip, we talked about that. Like, this could have been a really good team. The first half showed the potential. The second half showed the reality of who they are. I think if somebody says, in 20 years, I want to know more about that 2021 Vikings. I think you pull this game out and say, this encapsulates the 2021 team.
Yeah, it's the Jekyll and Hyde. And we've seen, me and you have covered a lot of weird Vikings things. A lot of it's off the field.
Yeah.
But this season is more on the field, where it's every game. I can't imagine, for the player. I was talking to Mark Craig about this last night, just like the human component to this, like being in all these games, like giving up leads, coming back, every game's going down to the final. It's like, at some point you wonder if they're just going to be like, okay, that's too much. This is too much to keep doing this. But I think it shows what we said about this team going back. They have some star powers and some obvious flaws. And those two things will make them look really good and really bad.
Yes. We're also getting a master class on, because this is always a question in all sports. How much does coaching matter? That's always a question. Yeah. Like in some leagues, it's like, coaching, who cares? And it's like, that might not be true. This is a poorly coached team. Top to bottom, for the most part, it's a poorly coached team. Now, first of all, the close games, for the most part, are self-induced. Your games are close. And, Mike says things like, I keep telling him, well, Mike, it's your team. It's not your job to tell them. It's your job to help fix that problem. And the other thing is, when you look at that defensive meltdown, and I know Hunter's out and Griffin's out, and that hurts. Okay. But everybody loses guys. When you look at how poorly coached the majority of those corners are, and Patrick Peterson is not Zim's guy, so he's just himself. But when you look at Breland, and then he's not good, and Dantzler, who's gone backwards, like massively backwards, and then Chris Boyd, who should not be on the roster, Alexander. We are far enough along where if they're screwing up, and the coach is like, they're screwing up, it's like, no, Mike, again, that's on you. This is a master class overall on what poor coaching can do to a team that should be better than it is.
Yeah, Zimmer had his. We're taping this Friday morning, and Zimmer had his day after this morning. And I was listening to it, and I mean, it was clear he was frustrated with his cornerbacks. And someone asked him about it, just kind of the roller coaster, and he started going into all the basically they weren't lined up. Their alignment. He was saying they ran this technique. They were supposed to be doing something else, and he said, these guys. He said if they can get lined up right and have the right, It's like, this is week 13.
Yeah, that's on you, dude.
I mean, that should be, I could understand maybe early in the season, but isn't this stuff that you iron out in training camp that you're still having alignment issues in week 13? So, yeah, and particularly because, like, Mike, that's your area of expertise. That's your, and these aren't rookies. I mean, I know Dantzler's not a veteran, but he's played a lot. And so, that to me is think about all the maneuvering they did this past offseason to get guys in the secondary. And they're going to make that an emphasis. And it's still this poor. I mean, just a really poor secondary. And so, but you even go back to the coaching is like, late in that game, and I was watching back, the the Cousins interception on, was it 3rd and 5 there with like 5.5 minutes to go? Why are they throwing the ball there? I mean, you're up 2 scores. Just run the ball.
I got a theory about that. I think so the first half of last night's game, Chip, to me, which I liked, but it was like they finally let a fan call plays because the play calling was so obvious. And we've all been saying it, right? If Dalvin's playing, you feed him and you force the ball to Jefferson at times. It's not saying it's always going to go well, but he needs the football because when he gets it, yeah. So like the first half, they sort of did that and that first. So the potential touchdown pass and the throw was actually a really good throw, but it was slightly off. The first potential touchdown pass on series,
the one-handed one
to Jefferson that he almost caught in the end zone.
Yeah.
It would have been a great catch, but in Kirk's defense, he threw it a little bit long because if it goes short, it probably gets picked off.
Correct.
So like that's a great shot, double coverage. But again, I'll go to take that shot. I know it's risky, but take it. But in the second half, and Phil said the same thing too, and Mackey's right. It's like when Clint decides to put the pedal to the floor, he doesn't know when to ease off of it. The 3rd and 8 last night, late in that game, on the throw to KJ Osborne, incomplete, which stopped the clock with, I think, 2:16 left. 3rd and 8 in that case with the lead, I would run it because you're going to eat a ton of clock off. And I believe Tomlin had just used his last timeout. So to answer your question, I don't think when Clint finally pulls off when Clint finally puts his foot down to the floorboard, it's like he doesn't know, okay, now it's time to ease off. It's like we're either all in or we're all out.
Well, that's, I mean, they were up 36-20 and the clock was, this was right after the Cousins had to scramble for the first down. And then they ran the ball, and it was like 3rd and 5, I think. And it's like, and then that's when the interception came, right? And you're just like, it feels weird because we've been preaching be aggressive, but there's a time and place. It's like
that's what our
the clock is your friend now. Yeah. Just run it, and heck, the way they run the ball, he could have gotten 5 yards off that too. But it was just like that was like a series of 10 things that had to happen for them to blow that game, and they did 9.5 of them, right? I mean, the one thing they did right is Harrison Smith and Xavier Woods converged to knock the ball out to save the game. But God, it was just a lesson in like a slow moving train wreck. I couldn't believe some of the things you're seeing, and I thought the Boyd taunting penalty really gave the Steelers life there because that was a 2nd and 10. They threw him for a loss, right? So it's going to be 3rd and long, and now you give him new life with that, and it's just you're taunting a guy. And then Dantzler PI at the goal line there. You're basically giving him a walk-in touchdown there. So it just feels like with their secondary, Judd, their margin of error is so small because you just know teams are going to be able to pick on them.
Yeah, I agree. That cornerback position is so bad and so poorly coached, and I don't understand why Chris Boyd is here. He's not a good player. I don't get why Cam Dantzler has gone so far backwards. That to me is coaching. And look, I mean, Mike, what frustrates me about Mike is Cam Dantzler did not have, it's not like he had a great rookie season, but he showed promise. He definitely showed promise. And then they got Breeland to start. And I thought that they would sort of ease Dantzler back in. And instead, from the start of training camp, it was like they were trying to find the flaws there. He's not doing this and he's not doing that. And then Chip, he wasn't even active in week 1. He eventually tweets, it's frustrating. And yeah, that's not a mature thing, but he is a kid. And the problem with that is in Detroit, when you had to have him, he failed you. Yeah. Am I shocked by that? No, I mean, you've got kids. If you constantly put your kids down and say they can't do their schoolwork and say this and that, and then they flunk a test, don't you say, I wonder if how I treated them was a problem. And I'm not saying it solves all of the problems, but when Cam Dantzler really botched that entire play, I was like, if you followed this team since training camp, it's not completely shocking.
No. I mean, I'm sure his head's spinning right now. Like,
well, I think he's defeated. And I think it's been clear for a long time. And then, like, all of a sudden, you're like, let's throw him back in the fire and see how well he failed you.
Yeah, and we looked it up, and these are Rick Spielman's free agent signings. Mackenzie Alexander on PFF for cornerbacks, 80 out of 82 that had 400 snaps. Wow. Breeland was 78th. Yeah, even Patrick Peterson was 44. So, by the PFF rankings, I mean, you signed two of the worst cornerbacks in the NFL. And, okay, well, I mean, and they're starting. I mean, it's like, that's why I just think it's so hard for this team to put anyone away, because offenses are going to find them and they're going to pick on them and they're just going to score points on them. And it's like, it just feels like no lead is going to be big enough because they're going to give up plays in the passing game.
Yeah.
Even Detroit.
Yeah. And here's the other problem too. And this again goes back on Mike as well. So when Mike got here, this was a league that embraced the pass at that point, but it was different than it is now. And part of what Mike likes is he likes his corners to be what, Chipper? Aggressive and physical, right? Yeah. And like Rhodes, who became very good, was eventually a guy who got away with a lot because one, he learned how to do it, and two, he was really good. But this league now, and Big Ben started to do this last night, and it's the smartest thing I think a quarterback can do. You literally chuck the ball up, you overthrow it slightly so it can't be picked off, and then you wait for Breeland or Dantzler or Boyd to grab the target, because that's sort of how the Vikings teach you to be physical, and it's 2021, baby. You know what's coming next? The hanky. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And
that's on coaching too.
And the thing is, you watch those, they were penalties. The Breeland one at the goal line, that's or Dantzler at the goal, that's a penalty.
And Breeland mugged
the Breeland one on the catch, which was an incredible catch.
Yes.
That was a penalty. I mean, and so yeah, it's I'm sure Zimmer would probably point to personnel more than, I mean, it's like, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I know when they don't get pressure, and that's what was so maddening about the Detroit game. It's like you have to manufacture pressure on these quarterbacks, because these corners are not good enough if you don't do that.
Yep. Yeah, they don't have the first half last night was exactly how they should go, because I would rather, if I'm Mike at this point, I would rather that my team gets beat with me pressuring too much than trying to lay off and drop extra guys back, which a lot of times does not work. So
no, and quarterbacks are good enough. And we saw him bring the double-A gap blitzes back last night, and he just kind of said, and that's what you have to do is like, Roethlisberger can't move. I mean, that was painful to watch that first half. I mean, he just looked like
he's got retired, Chip.
Yeah, well, he looked pretty damn good in the second half.
Yeah, go away. No, just go away. It's pathetic. Just go
I'm not
away.
saying you should come back.
Judd, your disdain for when veteran quarterbacks reach their ladder. Your tweet yesterday, you said that's how you're going to remember Big Ben, not the 2 Super Bowls and being one of the biggest and most physical dominating quarterbacks of his prime.
No, I'm going to remember that crap of him trying to move around the field like he's 78 years old. It was that. No, just go away. And yes, he still, but Chip, he also, so he did make some deep passes. I saw that. I get that. But he also at times was shot putting the football.
Yeah.
Like
his guys won. And like felt like his receivers won every 50-50 ball in the second half. I mean,
that's ridiculous.
I know.
You're right.
What do we make of Cousins, man?
He is who he is, I think. I mean, he's had a great year at times. There's no question about it. Look, my entire assessment of this team is it's gone stale. That's my assessment. I have a lot of hope for certain players who I think will be good, but I think that the key players, and this includes coaches and executives, like Spielman, Zimmer, and Kirk, it's just stale. They took their shot, it didn't work. Kirk completed, I think, 4 passes in the second half last night. He completed 2 to Pittsburgh players. Now, one is on Jefferson, but the one that you're talking about is on him.
Yeah.
But I mean, can Kirk win the important games? No. Can Mike do it? No. It's just stale.
Yeah, it just seemed like, Detroit game, second half was better. Obviously, first half he was just checking down everything. Just off last night. Him and JJ were just, off. Like, I was thinking about the one play was the third quarter where Jefferson had tried to make the Odell, one arm.
Yes.
Ball was way over his head. It's like, God, he's just off,
bad. That's a bad pass, yeah.
Yeah. And so, what was it? One completion for like 1 yard in the third quarter.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
No. I mean,
Kirk gets tight though. Like as soon as something goes wrong, the pick on the first play of the third quarter in San Francisco, right?
Mm-hmm,
Last night, it started to swing sort of weird. And then as soon as there's adversity, I think Kirk and Mike both in their own ways freak out.
Yeah, in different ways, yeah.
Like, I don't think they can calm it down. That's the key to sports, right?
Yeah.
Lower the
temperature.
You'll be fine. Everyone's going to be fine.
Judd, wouldn't that secondary make your heart rate go beat fast, though?
Well, if I had coached them that poorly, you'd be up at myself. I'd be mad at myself. I mean, they're terribly coached. I mean, Cam Dantzler is terribly coached. There is no, you can't keep getting around. Well, remember Rhodes? Yeah. Trey Waynes, who I thought got a bad rap and turned himself into a good player. I give Mike credit for that one. But, this team is poorly coached. The offensive coordinator, who had a decent game last night for sure, has done a bad job. Like, there's too many elements. Coaching matters. Structure matters, especially with Kirk. Kirk is going to do what you tell Kirk to do. And you've also got to be in charge of calming him down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know what else to say about them.
Yeah. I think it's all the above, right? I mean, I think it's everything we've mentioned. And so, I mean, yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about this morning. Like, I don't think they would fire Zimmer during the season. I just don't. Agreed. There's not enough games left. Like, who are you going to? What's the objective? You're not going to do it.
Right.
However, had they lost that game,
I thought the same thing.
I think there would have been a
yep.
I think there'd been a news conference over there today. I think
the Wilts would have completely lost their bleep.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be the greatest, biggest, meltdown in NFL regular season history. I mean,
right.
With a coach who's already on a hot seat. And so, yeah, Judd, I mean, you wake up this morning, I was just like, what the heck just happened last night? I mean, it was so bizarre.
It felt like a weird dream.
Yeah.
The Vikings were up big at the half and, it was fantastic. And then they pretty much collapsed.
Yeah.
It felt like a weird dream. All right. I'm going to get to 2 positives, but before that, I'm going to get to the biggest positive of the show, Chip Scoggins. And every week we get to it. It is a favorite of yours. It is a favorite of mine. Heck, it's a favorite of Declan Goff's as well. Surly Brewing Company makes Surly Furious, and Surly Furious IPA was made for the weekend. All right. There's no Vikings on Sunday, but you know what there is on Sunday? A ton of football. And I hope that all of us here are sitting on our couch with a Surly Furious, enjoying, in Chip's case, the tall boy. He likes the tall boy.
I like the tall ones.
In Chip's case, the tall boy. But I hope we all enjoy a nice weekend away from the torture that can be the Vikings, and we enjoy a Surly with our football. That's what I hope. Chip, happy Surly Sunday to you. Declan, happy Surly Sunday to you.
Exactly.
All right, the positives. Positive 1. I think last night, as torturous as that seemed, I think last night keeps Vikings fans on track to get what a lot of them want, which is going to be changes. I I think that like the Detroit game was a huge boon for that for sure, as far as this is going to cause changes. And I think last night again shows that this has run its course. So I think if you're expecting January 10th to be a day of changes, which would, I think, be probably Mike stepping down or being fired, and possibly, as we saw reported in ESPN's Insider, Rick Spielman being kicked higher upstairs. I still think that we're very much on track for that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Barring something crazy happened down the stretch here, I just think when that momentum starts and you feel like, this fan base is angry, and last night did not, calm the nerves or calm the frustration and the pushback on this regime. And so I will not be surprised. No.
Yeah, the fan base. So what was your read outside of all the Steeler fans with terrible towels last night, Chipper?
Yeah.
What was your read on that crowd? Because I thought it was between subdued and angry and sort of mystified by where did this first half come from?
Yeah. It was such a bizarre game because you see that first half and you're like, this is what, Dalvin and Jefferson and the defense is, they're blitzing and these guys are playing well. Like, where's this been? Or we've seen it, but not, maybe to this extent. And then, the alter ego shows up in the second half. And I think that's when, yeah, exactly.
Scooby-Doo. Let's find out who this team is.
That's right.
Mr. Childress. I would have got away with it if it hadn't been for you damn kids.
Yeah, and I think that's where, I'm sure people were, walked out of there like relieved that they won. They kind of shell shocked at what they saw, but probably like you were saying, it's like, you know what, this is the same old. They could have, so many bad things happened. They could have had one of this historic choke jobs here, and so, I think fans probably it hasn't changed their opinion on where things are at.
And positive 2 to wrap things up, a true positive, Dalvin Cook. 11 days after dislocating his shoulder against the Niners. And look, personally, I wouldn't have played him. But 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7+ yards per carry. He might not be the smartest one, but that is a warrior performance right there.
Yeah, Judd, when I heard that he's going to play, I had the same thought. I was like, you got a lot of money tied up into him. Why are you rushing him back? To make sure this doesn't, derail or cause any more damage. But
right,
man, he's tough. You got to give him a lot of credit, and I'm sure he was in a lot of pain. He's got that heart, that brace, and just
he's in a lot of pain this morning. Is my guess. I wonder how much pain. You've told me the stories about the guys who get shot up before games.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he was in a lot of pain then, but when it wears off, yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. Judd, he's just special, right? Yeah. And we go back and forth on the contract and the how wise it is to pay a running back, and I probably waffle on that more than anybody. But man, when you watch like last night, you're like, man, he's just a unique player. He's different. He's special, and I give him a ton of credit to come back when, I'm not sure everybody would rush back the way he did, and to have that kind of performance, man, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and I know that certainly in the first half for sure, the blocking was good, and he had a ton of yards before contact, but that to me does not take away the fact that 11 days ago his shoulder popped out, and it looked like it hurt like hell. So yeah, he is special player. You're right.
Hey, and that catch he made in the fourth quarter.
Oh my gosh.
That third down catch. That was a big time play there.
Yep. Now, if Kubiak will just take out those wide receiver screens, I'll be happy. That first one almost got picked. That first one
he jumped it. I know that guy
dangerous. Well, they saw exactly. So Jefferson went in motion, and Pittsburgh saw it and picked up on it. And Kirk, but true to Kirk threw that ball. Like, that's the thing about Kirk. Throw the ball, Kirk. Okay, I'll throw the ball. No, Kirk.
Yeah.
Do something else with the ball.
They had that one lined up. Yeah, for sure.
All right, sir. Don't forget Sunday, Fun Day, football, and Furious. Surly Furious. Tall boy for Chip Scoggins. I might actually have this one right here. See ya, Chipper. Talk to you next week.
All right, brother.